Yo dudes, I'm America. I mean, obviously. What other country's cool enough to talk to you guys? That's right, none of them, because I'm the best. Now, you guys have been bashing the country lately, and my boss is kind of mad, and somehow it's all my fault. So he had this idea that if, we sit down, have a heart-to-heart, nation to people, we could fix some things. And he also gave me a list of things to talk about, so we'll see how well this goes. Let's see here. Homeowners insurance. How about no? Health insurance. Yeah, another big no. Let's see. Why would anyone want to talk about that? The economy? Seriously? Seriously, I thought we were giving them reasons to like us again, not hate us. Well, considering this was a terrible, terrible failure, I came prepared. You're lucky. Today, we are going to talk about American history. Because it's awesome, and it's my history, and why wouldn't it be awesome? Everyone wants to learn more about the hero, because the hero's cool, and everyone wants to be like the hero. And today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite presidents, George Washington. I mean, he's obviously my favorite because, well, one of my favorites, because he started America. He was our first president ever. And, well, you see, he was born on a plantation in Virginia, which, back in this time, they had, like, huge fields of cotton and slaves and all those lovely little things. And he was born to a fairly wealthy family, but they weren't quite rich enough to send him to school, so he didn't go to school. But he wanted to be a surveyor, so he taught himself basically everything he would need to be a surveyor, which is a lot of math, and it's not fun. But a surveyor, if you don't know, is someone who tells you, well, your yard goes from here to that lovely tree over yonder, and that's where your neighbor's yard starts. Or in my case, I just got to sit back and, let him do all the work, and he was like, Maryland goes from here to here, and this huge plot of land can be Virginia, because West Virginia wasn't there at the time, so it's just like a giant span of Virginia. And while he was growing up, he actually hired on to a surveying company at the age of 17, but before that, he was talking to his mom, and he wanted to join the Royal Navy, which would have been really bad for us during the Revolution, because that would have given England another thing to use against us, because he didn't have enough to begin with. But his mom was really cool, and she was like, no, son, you must stay. You must fight for the American people, and you must help them overthrow their evil dictators. She was cool. So, he started going off and surveying with different companies, and then he grew older, and they were actually, may have kind of started the 7 Years' War. But it's okay. It's okay, because it made England really, really broke, and that was part of the reason we won the Revolution, because he was cool. But he was kind of hiking through Ohio country at the time, and there was a group of French soldiers just kind of sitting there. So he kind of took his nice little bayonet gun thing and aimed it down at the soldiers and shot them all. Well, him and his company, and they all just kind of killed them all. He was cool. I liked him. He took initiative. Speaking of fighting, he was lucky. That's the only way to describe him. He actually had 2 horses shot out from under him, and he ruined a coat, because while he was riding, he was shot 4 times, And yeah, I had to replace his coat, but that was okay because I'd rather replace coats than people. On the same line as battling, Washington actually lost more battles than he won, but that's okay because it's not necessarily the really strong winners that Americans get behind. Those aren't necessarily considered the heroes. They're cool and all, but they aren't necessarily heroes. The heroes are those people who have the great American spirit within them. And Washington was one of those people. He was able to rally the American people and spread hope throughout all of them, no matter race, color, religion. He was able to do that, and a lot of people got behind him, which also made him my only unanimously selected president, which means everyone wanted him as president. Crap. Which means everyone wanted him as president. It was pretty cool. A really cool thing about Washington was he was a really good horseman. He actually taught me how to ride because England kind of left and wouldn't teach me anything. So he taught me, and it was cool because I learned from the best, but now I can't really go out in public and be like, hey, George Washington taught me how to ride, because that'd be weird. After the Revolution, and after our really bad encounter of our first attempt at a constitution, Washington actually, during about that time where the first original constitution was kind of falling apart, Washington was at his plantation. He'd gone back after the Revolution because he was like, don't bother me ever again. I don't want to be bothered with politics. Yeah, that didn't work. You see, he was one of the ones who had signed it originally, and when it started failing, I was like, dude, we need your help. So basically, we locked everyone in a room, and they weren't allowed out till they fixed it, which was actually pretty quickly, considering they're a bunch of old men and they just like to argue. And after we fixed it and made the Constitution that I use today, it was all good, you know, but we needed a president. We needed a strong leader, and everyone picked George Washington, even though he really didn't want to lead at all. And he wasn't pleased. Not really. But he took it. He took the job, and he was like, okay, fine, dudes, I'll do it, whatever. And he was actually the only president not to live in the White House, because the White House wasn't actually completed till after his death, and he went back to his plantation in Virginia, and he was our president from there. He did come to the Capitol building when they had like meetings and official things to do, but he mostly did all of his work in his plantation home. And Washington, I really liked going to the plantation because there were always kids running around, and kids are so cool. They're fun to play with, and they don't judge you at all. You could just walk up to kids and be like, hey, I'm America, and they're like, okay, cool, let's play. You know, they don't care. So, I really did like playing with the kids. There were, Martha had 2 kids that were always there, and then, you know, as they grew up, they had kids, and there were just always kids running around the farm. But Washington and Martha never had children of their own, which didn't really matter because, you know, there were enough children that it was just hectic anyway. While he was in presidency, Washington popularized these things called mules, which back in the day it was really big discovery, because it's basically a cross between a female horse and a male donkey, and that was really neat back then because A horse is very fast, but they're not very strong, whereas a donkey is very sturdy, but it's not very big. So if you cross the two, you get this perfect mixture of this really strong horse-like creature. And contrary to popular belief, Mustangs are actually a lot more stubborn than a mule. I know this from personal experiences. But when Washington first started bringing over donkeys and horses from Spain, I was like, dude, what are you doing? I know Spain helped us out in the revolution and all, but why are we bringing over these weird looking creatures that are kind of horses but kind of not? And he was like, no dude, it's okay, it'll be cool, you just gotta trust me on this one. So I was like, alright. I mean, he was my president, and it's kind of part of being a nation is you have to kind of trust them with certain things. So it was kind of like, alright, but I'm not paying for it, it failed. Which I kind of do anyway. But it didn't fail because it was really cool. And then we were able to have canal boats and people transported a lot more quickly. While Washington was president, he also was a strong supporter of education. He knew not everyone could go to school because at the time it wasn't very popular and it was pretty expensive. But he was like, if you can afford to send your kid to school, you should do it. Or if you can at least homeschool your child so that they have certain skills that they'll need in life, then you'll be okay. Which I personally think is really cool because back then not many people thought that highly of school or education, and it is really important. Back in the day when Washington was president and at his prime, it was really high in fashion to wear wigs. Those white powdered wigs. If you look up in a history book and you flip through any page in the beginning of American history, you will see people wearing white powdered wigs. Washington never did that, which was really nice because everyone was trying to make me wear a wig because they were like, America, you're the people, you're the representation of us, you must do what we do. And I was not having it. I was not wearing a wig. They're itchy, they're scratchy, and they are just no. So, Washington didn't wear a wig, and that was really nice because he was our president, and if our president's not wearing a wig, that means I don't have to either. He did, however, powder his hair, which was another thing at the time. If they didn't wear a wig, they powdered their hair, made it kind of like white. So he did that, but he didn't wear a wig, and that meant I didn't have to wear one, which was awesome. See, Washington, he was a really strong person too because he had a lot of health problems, mostly dental problems, which wasn't uncommon back then because brushing your teeth wasn't really a common thing in England or America. And so a lot of Englishmen had bad teeth. Washington was no exception. He actually had a lot of teeth pulled, and then he had problems with his dentures and different things like that. But he never complained. He was very strong-willed and probably strong. And he never complained. He kept his complaints to himself and ruled the country as he thought it was supposed to be ruled, which was really, really important, and it's really inspiring because no matter how much pain he was in, he didn't complain. He just went with it. He was also a very religious person. I caught him a couple of times. I don't really say caught, but he did get, if he knew you were there, he would get a little antsy. But, it doesn't bother me. I'm the nation. There's thousands